What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the ShowMeFootball.com post-game show for the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry, I had to delay the post-game show tonight because I had a lot going on outside of the game. I had to pack it up and go as soon as it was over. But I figured I could still do one late at night for those of you that are still willing to jump on. And of course, you can still always watch it after the fact. It's live. You guys know that. But for those of you that already are pouring in here, make sure you get those comments and questions going now. Because since I'm going solo tonight, I'm going to go ahead and answer and interact with you guys more than I typically do on the post game shows. I know Hydra couldn't make it on tonight, but he'll probably be in the comments section. I would have had him on since it's later now, but he didn't actually get a chance to watch the game today, so I'm not sure he would have much input. Anyway, though, here's the important thing. The Chiefs won. As we're waiting for people to get in here, I will start going more in depth, of course. But the important thing today is that the Chiefs won. This was a must-win game, everything considered, and they went out there and they won. So that's a positive. I'm going to get the stats pulled up real quick here, though, so I can go ahead and go into that with you guys because there's a few things that I want to point out. But yeah, sorry. Anyway, so final score 13-7. We'll start with the defense, okay? Because that's the positive part. The defense played lights out today. I know it was Jordan Love. I know that if they had Aaron Rodgers, let's be honest, first of all, even though I wanted to start out with a positive. If the Packers had Aaron Rodgers today, they probably win this game and they probably win by double digits. I'm just going to say it, okay? That's the fact of the matter. If they have Aaron Rodgers today, they win this game. But the Chiefs won, and they won because of their defense. The defense was outstanding, even though it was Jordan Love. And I'll say, if I'm a Packers fan, I am actually pretty happy with what I saw from Jordan Love. I get Jordan Love was not all that. He was nothing special in this game. But for a guy making his first NFL start, what you wanted to see was him not look like Nathan Peterman and be a complete disaster. He showed towards the end of the game there, like the one drive, he was like 7 for 7 and had a few really nice throws. He showed he was able to sustain a couple of drives. He was a placeholder QB. That's what he was. That's what he looked like. And, for a guy making his first start, again, that's not that bad. I think there were some things to like from Jordan Love in this game. But, yeah, so if I'm a Packers fan, I'm happy with what I saw from Jordan Love. Yeah, he didn't light the world on fire or anything, but he wasn't a complete disaster either. But anyway, the Chiefs defense absolutely showed out. I don't know what got into them. And you guys know that I've been on the forefront of Frank Clark needs to go. I don't know what's gotten into Frank Clark these past few weeks either, but he looks fantastic. I admit it. Frank Clark has looked fantastic. He's out there getting pressures. He didn't have a sack today. He almost had a sack up, but Jordan Love was able to get the ball out just in time. But anyway, he was in there getting in the QB's face. He was getting pressure. He's been getting pressure the last few weeks. He looks phenomenal. Melvin Ingram also, this dude just walked in the building the other day, and he already looks like one of their best pass rushers. He got a pressure on the first drive that was able to wreck the game a little bit, although I didn't even actually get to see it until after because thanks Fox Sports for basically making us miss the first two drives of the game because in my market, they were showing me that overtime Ravens-Vikings game, which was maddening. I couldn't even watch the game. But yeah, I mean, the whole defensive line really had a great game. Again, they didn't sack Jordan Love. They had 7 quarterback hits today. I thought they looked pretty good. Then the secondary, everyone outside of Dan Sorensen had a pretty good game today as well. Tyron was getting his head in there on some tackles, making some stops. L'Jarius Sneed had maybe one of his best games as a Chief. He was all over Davante Adams all night and had an amazing interception. The one where he high pointed it. It was in Adams' hands. Davante Adams could have easily came down with it. Instead, Sneed comes down with it, and it was a good throw by Jordan Love too. But it was just great defense by L'Jarius Sneed. So yeah, that was an amazing play. Linebackers, I thought they had an okay game considering Anthony Hitchens was back there in the middle, although I didn't really love that move by Steve Spagnuolo, who we'll get into today because I still have a few bones to pick with Steve Spagnuolo. But you still saw Nick Bolton actually make some plays. Slim is chilling, even as a comment. I noticed that the Packers were able to run the ball with Hitchens in at Mike. Nick Bolton was still getting the tackles. They were just not TFLs because they weren't running at him often. Yeah. The Packers, even though they didn't have a great game offensively themselves, they were still able to identify those weak matchups and take advantage that the Chiefs were putting out there. And you also mentioned Dirty Dan, who I will get into in a second. Holly Winchell also throws in that Frank said in a recent press conference that he's finally feeling close to 100% from nagging injuries for the first time in a long time. Here's one thing I'll say about Frank Clark that's negative tonight. He does kind of sound like an excuse machine. So before, when he said this stuff about injuries, I always kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. It was always something with Frank Clark, and it's always been something with Frank Clark since he's been in Kansas City. But, if he keeps playing like this, then I'll take back everything I said. I believe the guy. Maybe injuries really were holding him back this entire time because he looks like a completely different player. He's definitely maybe had one of his best stretches of football that he's ever had in Kansas City over the past few weeks. I'm happy because if this team can get that Frank Clark playing like that, the ceiling for this defense is much higher than I think we once thought. And Doug says, Josh, is it time to panic with our offense? And I will get into that in just a second here. So hold that thought. I want to finish up a few more thoughts on the defense real quick, though. So Steve Spagnuolo, even though he called a good game drawing up blitzes and getting pressure on Jordan Love. I mean, guys, the pressure today that Steve Spagnuolo drew up was, he kept coming with it. It was amazing. But he still was taking Bolton and Willie Gay out of the game on third down in favor of Neiman. He was putting Dan Sorensen and all these packages on third down. And Dan Sorensen got absolutely embarrassed by Alan Lazard on the Green Bay Packers lone touchdown of the game. And why does Dan Sorensen still get on the field? I don't understand it. Why does Dan Sorensen still get playing time? Why is he on this roster? Legitimately, why is Dan Sorensen on this roster? I don't understand, man. Every single time he's in the game, teams exploit it. They go after him, and they do good. He's allowing basically a perfect passer rating this season when targeted. Everyone in the world can see that Dan Sorensen is unplayable, except for the people that are paid millions of dollars to make these personnel decisions. You've got to get Dirty Dan out of there, man. He's completely done as a player in coverage. He can blitz still, but that's about all he can do. I don't understand it. And the media needs to relentlessly question Steve Spagnuolo about Dan Sorensen and his snap count until it hits 0, because this is getting ridiculous. It really is. I want to remind people, though, that are watching now, we're up to 19 people. Nice crowd considering it is pretty late. But like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And if you're feeling generous, you can always support the channel by donating a super chat. But I want to get back to Doug's question. Is it time to panic with our offense? Give me 1 second. I don't want to say that it's time to panic, but I'm definitely concerned, because here's the thing. It would be different if it was like this all season long, but the offense was good to start the beginning of the year. So it's not like they haven't proved to us that they're capable of putting up 30, 40 points and moving the ball, because they've done that this year multiple times in multiple games, right? So it's not like they're totally incapable. They're capable. Just for whatever reason, the past several weeks, they haven't been able to put it all together. And Mahomes looks very off. He looks uncomfortable. But you know what? Here's the reality. Sometimes players go through rough stretches. It happens. I get it. Sometimes teams also have bad years. I've complained about how the Chiefs have looked all year. The thing is, sometimes teams just have off years. It's really hard after essentially making 3 straight Super Bowls. I know they didn't make the Super Bowl in 2018, but they were as close as you can get. And that takes a toll on a team long term, So it's extremely hard. I get it. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. I have been feeling a little under the weather the past couple days, but I can still do the show. The show must go on. But yeah, anyway, sorry. The offense, I don't think it's time to panic. I do think there's reason for concern, though, because they just haven't looked the same. Like, I don't care what the numbers say. I know their EPA was still pretty high. I know their yards per game and points per game and stuff like that. Like, they all were kind of in the upper half of the league. But a lot of that is inflated by some of those early performances. They could barely muster 17 points against the New York Giants. And here you go, the Packers today, who gifted the Kansas City Chiefs the ball at the 10-yard line with the special teams where the Packers player, the ball touched his foot and the Chiefs recovered it at the 10. They were gifted the ball at the 10-yard line and came out of that only with a field goal. And then they also got a defensive turnover and couldn't capitalize on that. So, yeah, it's extremely frustrating right now. But a lot of it, I think, is Andy Reid's play calling as much as it is on the players, too. Andy Reid he just has this stigma where he abandons the run. You got to run the freaking ball if you're the Chiefs, man. There were so many situations today where they should have ran the ball and they didn't. And when they're running the ball, they run it at the worst times. Darrell Williams was fine today. He had 19 carries for 70 yards. And I remember there was a stat that the Chiefs, ran the ball, I think it was 7 times on the drive in which they scored their first touchdown. And then after that, they only ran the ball like 5 or 6 times for almost the entirety of the game after that. That is absolutely ridiculous. You have to run the ball. These teams are daring you to run the ball. Matt Verderam over at Arrowhead Addict, who does the Arrowhead Addict postgame show podcast, he pointed out that the Packers have the highest EPA allowed on run plays when they show a light box, and the Chiefs could not take advantage of those light boxes. When they have those 2 deep safeties, you've got to run the freaking ball. And also, one of the things that drives me nuts about Andy Reid coach teams is they always they never reward players for good performances. Derek Gore looked freaking fantastic last week against the New York Giants, and he gets 3 carries today. What the hell is that? Get Derek Gore involved. That guy was a monster, and he also had a couple good runs today too. He was averaging 4.3 yards per carry on 3 carries. Give Derek Gore the freaking football. Run him. This is not that hard. I don't understand that. That just drove me insane. You've got to run the freaking ball. Got another question. AFC is so trash minus the Titans, who I think will get the 1 seed. And the Titans kind of made that game closer than it needed to be towards the end there. And I know they looked good today, but they're going to be without Derrick Henry likely for the rest of the season. I'm not necessarily sure they look that great going forward as they did tonight without Derrick Henry. So really the AFC is completely wide open. It's up to the Chiefs if they want to take it, but they're not going to take it with the offense that they had tonight. Hydra says, Lucas Niang is the best tackle on the roster, and it showed tonight when he left the game. Yeah, man. Andrew Wiley was awful, to say the least. And also, another thing that drove me crazy with Andy Reid tonight was he did not give Andrew Wiley help on the right when he clearly needed it. There never seemed to really be any chips or an extra tight end in there to help him out. You left Andrew Wiley on an island for far too long, and it came back to bite you on one of Patrick Mahomes' sacks that killed the drive. You just can't have that. I believe he had a pass blocking grade like in the 40s or 50s tonight. I mean, atrocious. It just was. Voodoo, nice to see you back in the comments again. He says, we miss Fortson, CEH, and Sammy Watkins' skill set. Not his injuries. Talking about Watkins. Pringle is solid. Hardman is good for the gadget player. And we'll talk about Hardman. But yeah, I agree with all your points that you're saying there. minus CEH. What I will say, and I know I sound like a CEH hater, but I don't think CEH makes that much of a difference. He just doesn't. He doesn't have that big of a gap from Darrell Williams. I think he's a better running back than Darrell Williams, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't think is changing much about the way this offense plays. Although people are throwing around this notion that maybe they play worse without him because their offense obviously has looked really bad since Clyde went out. I think that's more coincidentally, but you get my point. They do definitely miss Fortson, though. And he was just getting into a rhythm before he got hurt, which really sucks. And I always was a Fortson guy. I pulled for him. But all that dude did when he was here healthy was score touchdowns. And then he had that amazing catch against Washington over the defender. They miss having guys like that can win those 50-50 balls. And I would even go as far as to say that they didn't use Fortson enough. And I think they even should have tried him at the X receiver position a little bit and maybe, gave him some passes over the middle of the field. And that's another thing that's driving me crazy about Andy Reid too, is where is Josh Gordon? You signed this guy, freaking use him. I still think Josh Gordon has it. I really do. And they just aren't utilizing him. Like, I get it. He's been disappointing when you look at his production, but they're not even giving him any targets. And some could say, well, he's not getting open. No, guys, a lot of these receivers are getting open. And you saw Travis Kelce tonight throw up his hands multiple times because he was open and Patrick Mahomes didn't throw him the ball. Mahomes has just got to play better and find these open guys. He just doesn't look like himself as of recently for whatever reason. But, Josh Gordon is not getting blanketed on every single play. I don't have y'all 22 in front of me right now, but that's just not the case. You got to get Josh Gordon targets. They're able to manufacture targets for Mecole Hardman. I'm tired of seeing Mecole Hardman get the football. Get it to Josh Gordon. And he's someone who's that big body receiver we all said we wanted, who can take advantage of single coverage, like we all said with Sammy Watkins when he was here. With playing next to Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Josh Gordon has enough talent to be like Sammy Watkins was in this offense. They're just not utilizing him. And also, we do have to remember he's only been here for about 4 or 5 weeks now. I know you want to see more by now, but he still has only been here for 4 or 5 weeks. And it is a complex offense. I'm not one of these people that believe in this trope that it takes years and years to get down the Andy Reid offense, but it is a little bit complicated, and you do have to acknowledge that. Artis says Andy Reid not running the ball. Eagles fans have been saying that since '99. Yeah, it's just something that is always going to kill him. He's too stubborn to move on or move off from it. That's just the way it's going to be. I'll talk about Mecole Hardman now, though, since I did kind of touch on him a second ago. This dude is absolutely unplayable right now. He cannot hang on to the football. They try so hard with Mecole Hardman to get him involved, and he tries his hardest to say, hey, stop giving me the ball, and they keep doing it. If you needed any more evidence that Mecole Hardman is not it going forward, or that he is not a wide receiver 2, or really even a good receiver at all, tonight just added to the sample size of Mecole Hardman not being the answer. He can't catch. He's a complete bonehead on special teams. And then he nearly costed the Chiefs the game there at one point when he shoved Kevin King after one of his catches. First of all, Mecole, you're not good enough to be doing that. Second, you can't be making a decision that boneheaded that late in the game when it's only a 1-score game. That could have been a scenario where the Chiefs eventually had to give the ball back to the Packers. They drive down the field and score. And we're talking about the Chiefs losing 14-13. And you don't want that. It's maddening. I'm done with Hardman, man. Another note, though, Jerick McKinnon, they got him involved a little bit tonight in the receiving game. 3 receptions for 26 yards. Love to see that. It's amazing what happens when you actually use your most explosive back on roster. He had the one screenplay that he took for, I think it was either just short of a first down or it was a first down, and it really should have been like a 2-yard loss. That was a great play by Jerick McKinnon. I would like to see him get involved more. But I have a feeling he's probably going to fall out of favor once Clyde comes back. Same thing with Derek Gore. I think they'll go back to a lot more just Daryl and Clyde, which is a shame, but oh well. Another one of my offensive notes, Orlando Brown. We were hard on this guy when he wasn't performing well, but you got to give him his credit now that he looks good. He had a fantastic game tonight. He pass blocked really well for Patrick Mahomes. I think he had the highest pass blocking grade on the Chiefs offensive line tonight. Give Orlando Brown credit. He looked good. Once again, for those of you watching, though, we got about 27 people, which is a decent number considering I've started this pretty late. I appreciate all of you who are joining me tonight, but make sure you get those comments and questions because now that I'm going solo tonight, since Hydra couldn't join me and I decided last second that I was going to do this, I'm going to be more interactive with you guys tonight than I typically am for these post-game shows. And also, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this, and you can always support the channel through the super chat option. Hydra says, how do you see the grades for tonight? I saw a couple of them floating around Twitter from people who get them, but otherwise I don't really get them. Doug says, hey, Josh, 2 wins in a row, but the Raiders next. Got to be honest, I'm worried. Yeah, especially since the Raiders have played the Chiefs pretty close as of recently. And even though I think they did lose today, didn't they, to the Giants? Let me look that up real quick just to be sure. Yeah, they lost to the Giants today, 23-16. Even though that happened, and the Raiders have had a rough go of things lately too. With the Henry Ruggs situation and all, they're still fighting. But I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack with that. And they don't have a head coach right now either. Interim head coach, but John Gruden was fired. You guys know that unless you've been living under a rock. Anyway, here's the thing, though. The Chiefs barely beat the New York Giants. So even if you're using the transitive logic when it comes to wins and how teams will play each other because of that, here's the thing. The Chiefs barely beat the Giants, and the Giants beat the Raiders today. So ideally, you would think that the Raiders can still play the Chiefs pretty close. Look, what I'm saying is that, yeah, I'm a little bit worried too. I'm right there with you because I don't think the Chiefs are a great team. I don't think they've been playing like a great team. And I know we said at the beginning, I'm going off on so many different tangents here. My mind is racing. Here's the thing. We keep saying, if the Chiefs do this, then they'll be fine. Or if they don't do that, then they'll be fine. We, played this if game with them forever. But it seems like they're just an unfocused team. They're an incomplete team. And that's just until they prove to us that they're not, we're just going to have to, go forward under the assumption that they can lose to the Raiders. Because here's the thing. We said at the beginning of the season, oh, well, if the defense just isn't, the absolute worst in the league, then they'll get it together. They'll be fine. And then the defense started to play a little bit better. And then we go, oh, well, if they stop turning the ball over, they'll be fine. Well, they kept turning the ball over. They weren't fine. Well, they don't turn over the ball today, but the offense looks atrocious. Now that's the biggest problem facing this team as of recently. The offense looks atrocious. Now people are saying, oh, well, if the offense isn't absolutely atrocious, then they're going to be fine. Okay. At what point do we admit that they're not going to be fine and that they're just a team that has issues, they have holes, they have problems? So my point was, we're going to have to view them as a team that has problems, which means I expect them to have a hard time against the Raiders, especially since it's a division opponent as well. Division games tend to be a little bit more intense. Those are my thoughts. So yeah, I agree. Pedro says we need OBJ. I made a video on the OBJ idea as of recently. If you haven't seen it, go check it out after you're done watching this. Here's what I'll say about Odell Beckham Jr. I would like for the Chiefs to go after him. I would be fine with it. But it would have to be under the notion that OBJ doesn't, complain when he isn't the guy every game getting all these targets. Cause I know that was one of the biggest reasons he wanted out of Cleveland and why the marriage didn't work there was because he wasn't getting the targets that he wanted. He wasn't getting as involved. Look, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are always going to be the top 2 dogs on this offense, and OBJ would probably be the third option. That's just what it is. But he's still very talented, and he's someone that is a real threat that I think could help this team beat cover two more often. I think, you wouldn't be able to bracket Hill and Kelsey as easily if you had him, because I think OBJ is closer to being prime OBJ than a lot of people seem to think that he is. So, yeah, I would love to add OBJ, but I saw a report from Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk that the Seahawks look to be the favorite right now. I don't know why you would go to the Seahawks, man. I feel like, I don't know, the Chiefs need him more, and the Chiefs would have to do a lot of selling to convince him that. I was saying tonight, though, I tweeted, I hope OBJ was watching this game and was thinking about how much he could help this Chiefs team out, because he could. And Mr. Alex Knight, he leaves this. I wanted to bring this up real quick. Jackson signed with the Raiders. I forgot to mention that. So that's someone, even though I was not high on Deshaun Jackson at all, in fact, I think he's pretty much washed. I mean, guys, look at his numbers from the past few years. He's just not the same Deshaun Jackson, but he's someone that can step into the role that Henry Ruggs had on that team and replicate a little bit of what he did, which gives them that element that they lost when Henry Ruggs' situation was going down. But thanks for bringing that up, because I almost forgot to mention that. Bag TV says our offense just doesn't look the same anymore. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. I just, Mahomes, a lot of it is Reed's play calling, but some of it is also Mahomes just not seeing the field well. I mean, heck, he almost had an interception again tonight. Kevin King, if he didn't drop that, that's another Mahomes pick right there. Some of these Mahomes throws, I'm just going, what the heck are you looking at? It just doesn't make sense. Carl Boyd says, do you see Mahomes looking on to Hill and not looking for second and third options? I will say it does seem like a lot of the times Patrick Mahomes' first two reads are Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Why wouldn't they be? Obviously. And teams have just been playing them very well recently. And I also think teams have been physical with Kelce. He hasn't responded well. And on top of that, Kelce is playing hurt, I feel like, which has made him less effective. So it has been a huge factor lately. And then Tyreek Hill, he's slipping all over the place. He's dropping more balls than he usually does. That's a problem. And that's why you see a lot of these woes on offense, is because, yeah, those are his top two guys. He doesn't look for the third option a lot. And when those guys aren't playing well, then things tend to get ugly. So, yeah, that's the way it is. Steve-O says Mahomes had some opportunities to throw to Kelce. Yeah, I mentioned that a little bit earlier. You saw Kelce throw his hands up a couple times and go, hey, what the heck? I was open. But instead, he's throwing into double coverage with Mecole Hardman 60 yards down the field. I would have taken the throw to Kelce every single time. Again, not really sure what Mahomes was looking at there. He's just, I don't know. He just looks off, man. I think the hope would have to be when he ran out of the pocket, when he drifted out of the pocket at the end of the game there to ice it with that throw to Tyreek Hill. You just have to hope that he builds off that, because the way he reacted was very positive. I know we said that after the Washington game, maybe this is the game where they turn around and the flip was switched. That wasn't the case. Hopefully this time around it means a little bit more, though, because you saw how happy he was. And again, Matt Verderam, he said this on the Arrowhead Addict podcast. I think it meant something to him when he completed that throw to Tyreek Hill on third down. And hopefully that's what they needed going forward, because the offense is going to have to show up if they hope to beat the Raiders, because Derek Carr is much better than Jordan Love. And then Doug says that, again, wish Bolton played middle linebacker more. He's better than Hitch. Yeah, not sure what Spags is thinking there. You want the defense to not revert back to what it was pre-Bolton playing middle linebacker. So, also another thing that I've noticed that I wanted to touch on is that Mike Hughes has been benched. He hasn't gotten any defensive snaps, it appears, over the last few weeks, which is good. I'm glad that Spags is at least eyeing one of the weaknesses on the defense and doing something about it. Mike Hughes should not be seeing the field, and now he's not, because he doesn't deserve to see the field. Evan Copeland says, if we got OBJ, he would get the Josh Gordon treatment. That's where I'm a little on the fence about signing OBJ, is because you signed Josh Gordon to be this X receiver, be this third receiver that's legit, and it just hasn't worked out. So why would you want to bring in another receiver that would then also have to learn your offense and get acclimated? And just, I don't know. I feel like it would be this black hole in the Chiefs wide receiver room that isn't really helping you if you brought in yet another free agent to help you out. And then also, who are you going to kick out if you were to bring in OBJ? That being said, OBJ, I think, is more talented than Josh Gordon at this point in their respective careers. I think OBJ can get separation a little bit better than Josh Gordon. I don't know, man. To me, it comes down to OBJ's personality and how is it going to mesh if you were to come to Kansas City. Because that's what I'm concerned about. And I'm not one of these people that are out here, oh, don't sign OBJ. He's a diva. No, I would give him a shot. I mean, if you were to sign him, it's going to be on a 1-year deal for the minimum. He's going to get, he's going to pass through waivers. So it's not like it would be a huge investment. If it doesn't work out, you can just cut him and you're not going to lose anything. Anymore. Slim is chillin' says he has no confidence in his other receivers, and whenever he does go to them, they aren't reliable. Yeah, exactly. Like, he tried to get Josh Gordon involved, and Josh Gordon, that was a catch he should have had. It was his lone target of the night. And I really wish they would have kept trying to get him involved after that, because I don't feel like Josh Gordon has given you reason to not get him involved. Like, unlike Mecole Hardman, they just keep going to him and he just keeps screwing up. But it's not like they've been going to Josh Gordon continuously and he's screwing up. They just haven't went to him, period, you know? So that's frustrating. I'm going to go for a couple more minutes. I'm almost done talking about this game. I'm coughing a lot. I think I need to give my throat a break. But so that being said, those of you that are still watching, get your last minute comments and questions in, and I will go over them. And then lastly, like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. But Evan says it again, play calling is horrible. I touched on that earlier. I don't know what Andy Reid is doing. And I've heard convoluted stories, whether it's Eric Bieniemy calling plays or whether it's Andy Reid calling plays. I don't know which one it is, but something's got to change. Like, hand the play calling duties to the other person, whoever it is calling plays. And if it's a mixture of both, well, how about let's change that? Because this is not working, whatever the hell this is. And if this really is Eric Bieniemy's play calling, well, then I think you guys are now seeing why he hasn't been hired for a head coaching job yet. Sorry. That's the way I feel. Mr. Alex Knight says he needs to bench Sorensen and Neiman. Yeah, and I was ripping into Sorensen earlier. I didn't rip into Neiman mostly because he didn't stick out like a sore thumb tonight like Sorensen did. But Ben Neiman was horrible last week against the Giants, and he was also responsible for one of the Giants' points. Neiman and Sorensen were responsible for all of the Giants' points last week. But Neiman in particular got beat like a drum by Kyle Rudolph in man coverage on one of the Giants' touchdowns. And that was the moment for me. I lost it. And I wrote an article for this on Arrowhead Addict that was released earlier today. You guys can go check it out if you want after. But I asked the question about Dorian O'Daniel again. You can't tell me this guy is worse at covering tight ends and running backs out of the backfield. He's an athlete. At least he can run with guys like that. Ben Neiman can't even run. He's slow. His feet are cinder blocks. He can't get off blocks. Dorian O'Daniel has trouble shedding blocks, but at least he's more athletic and violent. That gives him a better chance than Ben Neiman. And Dorian O'Daniel can actually tackle. Ben Neiman, he's far from a great tackler. I want to see Dorian O'Daniel, man, but Spags will never do it. That's one thing Sutton did well. He utilized Dorian O'Daniel. Rodney Hale says the Chiefs' record will be 13-4 by the end of the year. That's assuming that they don't win a game or don't lose a game for the rest of the season. To me, that is a bold take, but I like the optimism, Rodney. Mr. Alex Knight says, later, Hydra, have fun in your Mustang. It's a shame Hydra couldn't come on tonight. I asked him last second if he wanted to join, but then he said he didn't watch the game at all, so there was nothing much he could say. Evan Copeland says, I let Mahomes audible every play. You know, it's funny because I actually wrote about this earlier on too, about how I think Mahomes needs to show his teeth a little bit. And like, one thing, I hate Tom Brady, but one thing I like about him is he's willing to disagree with his coaches. You will never see Patrick Mahomes like go against Andy Reid or anything like that. Like if Andy Reid says, no, we're not going for it on 4th and 2, then they're not going to go for it on 4th and 2. Sometimes Patrick Mahomes will go back and forth with them a little bit, but he's not going to Mahomes can be a pushover. But I see Tom Brady go up to Byron Leftwich a lot, the Bucs offense coordinator, and go, man, that's a BS call. We're not doing that. Like when Andy Reid is calling some of these second and long runs, I want Mahomes to be like, no, we're not running excuse my language, we're not running the fucking ball on second and long. I'm going to audible out of this, and we're throwing the ball. Give me Travis Kelce on a slant route. I really wish he would do that more often. But yeah, I definitely agree. Bag TV says it just doesn't make sense to me. Ever since Andy been our coach, he's been creative and offensive minded coach. What's going on? To me, I feel like a lot of the habits that he's showing now have always been his habits, but ever since Patrick Mahomes has came along, he was able to mask Andy Reid or cover up for Andy Reid a lot more than people were willing to admit. And now that Mahomes hasn't been playing well, you're seeing those problems with Andy Reid become more prevalent. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got, because it looks like your comments have really slowed down. And I get it. It's late, and I got some other work to do still. I'm going to have more content for you guys this week. Sorry I wasn't able to produce a lot of videos in this past week. I was going to do some Packers preview, but just never got around to it with my work schedule. But thanks again for you guys who joined really late tonight. Again, Doug says, thanks, Josh. Really like the show. Thanks for watching. You guys know that I appreciate it. And if you want to show support, make sure to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to make sure more Chiefs fans can find this, so we can make this more of a fun time for everybody when we get a bunch of people in here on these post-game shows and all that good stuff. But yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I was debating whether or not I wanted to do one of these. I was maybe going to wait till tomorrow and make a video on it, but I figured, hey, hell, why not? But yeah, that's all I got, guys. So make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, as well as some of my other content here on the channel after you're done watching this. But I will see y'all in the next one.